Perfect. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TFTuesday Podcast. My name is Zill. It's great to have you all here. I'm sure absolutely nothing bad happened last week, and there are no comment sections on fire. I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, K-Libra. How are you doing, K-Libra?
Am I supposed to fight the fires? I'm not a firefighter.
I mean, that's up to you. I mean, it is a scorcher out right now, so I do feel like every time I step outside, I'm fighting fires, but that's a completely different circumstance.
Really, it wasn't too bad for me.
It rained today, which was like kind of whatever, but the day before, like, I literally didn't even want to go outside. I walked on the treadmill instead of doing my usual walk, so I was like, fuck this.
Well,
so.
You know what? I went and I actually came home. Before I came home from the airport, nobody needs to know why. Before I came home from the airport, I decided to take a little walk a lap around the park that's nearby, and it was nice. Yeah. But I noticed that I came home ultra sweaty, and I did not push myself. The humidity was just awful. So that means that I understand why you didn't want to go outside. There's a benefit to that. You don't want to boil.
Yeah, no, I do not want to boil. Listen, if I wanted to go take a trip to Hades, I'd just pull out the game Hades. I would not be going outside and trying to die in humidity.
Right.
But, one thing that you can do if you're trying to beat the heat and stay indoors is you can listen to our podcast and support us on Patreon.
Yeah.
We have a wonderful Discord that you can sign up to, and you can give us money, and we can continue to, make wonderful episodes like this or set things on fire like previous episodes. You never know. You never know.
Or maybe we boil things. You feel like the humidity never just goes away, and you just get caught in the wet bulb. The wet bulb of the comment section sometime even because there's no ventilation in there.
There is no ventilation. They really should have thought about that and installed an HVAC system in YouTube when they were inventing the comment system. But alas, here we are, and we are HVAC-less, as it were. So,
but what we do,
but who knows? Maybe someone will TF into one.
Yeah, sure. But what we do have is our guest today, Ember.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's me. That's me. Yep, I'm Ember. What, should I introduce myself now then?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Ember, also known as Emberbat or Silverclaw. I draw TF and I enjoy TF. I draw other things as well, but mostly that. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah,
that's fine.
No, that's great. And honestly, I'm really glad to have you on. I've seen your art online for quite a while. You've been creating art for a very good chunk of time. And I know a lot of folks have really admired your stuff throughout all the time that you've been creating stuff online. And I guess, it's funny. We'll get to maybe the way that I was introduced to your artwork in a bit. But I was curious to hear how you kind of journeyed into the TF fandom and kind of discovered that this was a niche that you wanted to create art within.
I guess I've always been interested in transformation, ever since I was a kid. Like some of the first things I remember, it was like cartoons, like every cartoon almost had some kind of transformation in it, like My Little Ponies and Care Bears. And later on, I was really into Pinocchio a lot when I was a kid. And even though that scene scared me a lot. And let's see. Oh yeah, I was really into Sword in the Stone. That was a nice. Yes. It was really fun with the different sequences they had.
I will say, actually, Sword in the Stone, I actually rewatched that not too long ago. I hadn't seen it in probably 15 years or something, maybe even more. And it's a pretty great movie. The plot is very low stakes, whatever. But the TF is actually way more of it than I remembered it being, which kind of surprised me because I thought it was little things here and there. But no, it's more than 50% of the movie is someone in a TF form, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah, it's a whole TF movie. It's has the fish sequence, the squirrel sequence, the sparrow, and the wizard duel.
Yeah.
They're just a shapeshifter or some kind of widespread curse or what? I never seen the movie.
You never seen it?
So basically,
oh my God.
The gist of it is basically they're trying to figure out who's going to be the next king of England because there's a sword in the stone and no one can pull it out, blah, blah, blah. Merlin's going around doing some magic. He runs into this kid who he thinks might potentially have some like he might eventually be like the king or whatever. So he starts like teaching him about like the ways of the world or whatever. And because he's like a wizard and he has all this magic, he wants to like show him different perspective and stuff. And I guess the main conflict that comes in at one point during the movie is there's like an evil witch who also likes TFing people, but she wants to use her magic to just do whatever it is that she wants, and Merlin wants to use it for good or whatever. So they have like a duel where they like transform each other multiple times and a bunch of stuff. The plot is pretty like, it's very much whatever. It's very like, this is a kid's story basically type thing, but the TFs actually take up like a huge chunk of it, which again, I was like, I didn't remember until I saw it recently, and I was like, oh wow, like it is actually like a pretty significant part of this movie.
It's like the pilot of Dexter's Laboratory, but way longer.
Yeah, I would say so.
I can't believe you haven't watched it though. You should really do that. Yeah.
I'll say, there's a lot of things I haven't watched that many people insist I need to watch, and sometimes it's good. And sometimes I don't know why people do this to me.
Well, have you seen? I know this is going off track. Have you seen the Disney Robin Hood?
No.
Or
and
like,
I never tried to.
What?
I don't get it. There was no hook for me. I look at that movie and I'm like, it seems fine.
Oh my god.
Like, why do I need to watch this? Even as a kid, I'm just like, Disney's Robin Hood, classic in the Disney Vault, blah 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 blah, and I'm just like, I got my tape of Lion King here, and it's fine, and my tape of Aladdin, and that's cool, and I went, sure, whatever.
That's distressing news.
Well, we'll have that on like future viewings
please.
potentially.
Yell at me, kill me, destroy me. Oh my god. No.
Listen, you've never lived until you've seen a dashing fox who's clearly been tied up, and this totally isn't kinky. Don't worry about it, guys.
And you've never died until you've watched a warmonger who got away with being called a hero. He was a total piece of crap, and everybody decided that they really thought he was a great guy, and they even sang songs about him in the subway, and people were like, this is great, this is like an essential watch for the franchise. And then you know what? You find out that he was a weirdo with mommy issues, that he probably had predilections toward people that were way too young, and also sent someone to die in a war who's never been a soldier before, and that movie was supposed to be one of the best things for me to watch, and I'm angry now.
What movie is this?
What movie was this?
Char's Counterattack.
I'm not
It
sure
unfortunately
what
also sounds eerily similar to some real things.
Gundam. Okay, alright. My nerdy friend knows what you mean.
Aha! If you like Char's Counterattack, I don't.
That's to make you watch stuff like Clockwork Orange later. With your eyes like pinned open.
There will be revenge. Anyway, no, I never watched Robin Hood or Sword in the Stone, and with like the kids media and stuff, there was definitely a lot that you could find like anywhere, because it's just fun to animate any sort of perspective. And I mean, I think that's a appeal that a lot of people have with this, where they want to just know what it's like. Like even David Mattingly was saying how he would love to know what the cats were thinking and what they were saying. It'd be cool to be able to communicate or live the world through that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, so like, Ember, would you say that, like, that's, like, an appeal to you? Was, like, part of, like, what got you into it? Or, like, I don't know. Like, what was the spark? And now, what are the things that, like, hold you in it?
Well, I know... Yeah, like now, like, I really like, donkey TFs and, like, all that. And, like, that's probably from me being traumatized as a kid with watching Pinocchio and accidentally seeing that scene in Willow when I was, like, flipping through channels on, like, UPN, like, back in the 90s. And, like, oh, God, what is this? And now it's like, oh, yeah, that's really fun. But I used to be scared of that kind of stuff for a while as a kid. But I guess, like, besides, like, the positive things, like Sword in the Stone was, like, positive transformations for the most part. And... Animorphs was really big for me getting into more TF. So I guess it was just like that for a while, and then like later on, like I found like furry stuff online by searching up like Lion King, and then like I joined like some furry forum. It was literally called just like the Furry Forum, so it was like very generic name, but it had like a role-playing section for like Wolves and Lion King and then other, which is where I made the Toby character, by the way, which was like back in like
Oh,
2003,
wow.
which is crazy. And but that's
Wow.
like for later, the topic. Let's see.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, and like around the time like when I first started, using the internet for fun instead of like just for school stuff, I also like came across like people into transformation. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like I remember, I don't know what the site was called, but it was like
Mm-hmm.
everyone had like every single clip you could think of like different animation, like the transformations in different animations, and like you could like search by
Oh,
what animal it was. I don't know what.
it might have been Shadow
Really?
Lord.
Okay, that
Shadow Lord
sounds
Inc.
familiar,
Yeah.
definitely. So I guess I was like looking at that and I was like, wow, like some people are really into transformations too, like even more. But like, and I found transfer at some point, and I was like really intrigued by that. I think the first transformation artist I was like really into was Kuma. So they were like a
Mm-hmm.
really, I guess, big influence for me for TF artists because it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
has like that animation style to it, kind of like it could be from like a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Boo, boo, boo. Oh yeah. At some point I got really into werewolves and I was like watching every werewolf movie I could find. I was working at Hollywood Videos, so like I would just like get movies out for free from there and just find anything with like a
Oh,
werewolf.
nice.
And I found like a werewolf forum. I think it was like for that movie. I don't know if you ever heard of it, like Freeborn, but
I
it was
heard
like
of Freeborn.
yeah, like it was like this director who wanted
Mm.
to make this really like ambitious werewolf movie. So it never got made, sadly. I don't know whatever happened, but
Damn.
there was a really big forum and community around that for a while. And one day, like someone asked, like in this art section of the forums, like to make a werewolf mid TF picture, drawings. So people were posting
Yeah.
theirs, and I was like, okay, I'll draw that. I like drawing like this kind of stuff, and then I posted that on Fur Affinity, which I joined in like 2008 too, and that got like a ton of attention. And I was like, wow, people really like this, and it's like I like drawing it,
Yeah.
people like it, so I think I'll just keep trying it. And then I was like, just yeah, cut to where I am now, like like doing lots of commissions and stuff. So yeah, I really like I like doing the TF, and people want the TF, so it worked out.
Nice.
Okay, cool.
No, that makes
Yeah.
sense. I it's interesting how like it very much felt like yes, you had this interest kind of in the background, but then as you just kind of traverse the internet, things just kept coming up about it, and you're like, "Oh, okay, interesting." And then you just kind of like I don't want to say stumbled into it, but like you just kind of like it happened very organically, I
Yeah.
guess. And like, oh, I wasn't like specifically I'm going to go in and do this stuff. It's more, "Oh, I just tried it and people seem chill with it, so I'm just going to keep doing it." And then it just kind of went from there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I used to like,
Yeah.
draw TF stuff like before I knew what the TF fandom was, and then I'd be really embarrassed about it and destroy the drawings later. And now it's like, oh, people want to see this.
Classic.
So like that was a good feeling.
Nice. And, it's interesting. It sounds like, in terms of when you were like building up your art process, I mean, it sounds like, you had like some inspirations like Kuma and such, and those kind of fed in. Were there any other like things that you're trying to like consciously incorporate into your art style as you were starting to like build it up at all?
Um, Basically, I just like, really like traditional animation. So I don't like go in saying like I'm gonna make this try to look like a from like a Disney animated movie or anything, but it's kind of like a style I guess
Yeah.
like I grew up on, and so I just kind of subconsciously find that appealing to make it look, something like it could be like a traditional like Disney or Don Bluth kind of style, I guess.
Yeah.
Even though like
I see the Don Bluth.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Like you, like a character Toby is a werebat or something like that, right?
he's like a mutant, so yeah,
Mutant.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like-
that's
yeah.
very Fern Gully
oh yeah,
with how it comes off to me.
okay, yeah. I did really like Ferngully a lot too, so that could have been some subconscious stuff going on.
See, I watched that movie.
Yeah, you got
Okay,
something.
yeah. Okay, well that one also has TF in it. So.
People
Yeah.
are like Sword in the Stone, Robin Hood, Fox and the Hound, I'm like Fern Gully. Oh, I haven't seen Fern Gully. Oh,
Ferngully's great. It's got
I know,
Tim
I was
Curry
about to
doing
say.
like music and singing and being evil. Like, what else would you want out of a movie?
Yes.
Hello.
Robin Hood tied up.
He's an icon.
I mean that. Yeah. I'm good with both of these.
I know you are.
Yeah, I know you know. But yeah, no, it's really funny that I mean, we've already kind of like alluded to it twice now. So like at least when I first found your art, I actually found it through some of like the Toby and Simon pieces that you were doing at the time.
Nice.
And I think this would have been after you'd already started posting to For Affinity. But those were the pieces that actually grabbed my attention, I guess, perhaps. And I would love to kind of like dig into that. And we've already kind of alluded to maybe how Toby came to be, but let's take a step back because maybe people don't know what I'm talking about and we can educate them a little. So maybe you can explain a little bit about who Toby and Simon are and how you kind of like came up with them in the first place.
Yeah, Toby's like a character I've had since like 2003 or so. Like it started with like that roleplay section I did like on that furry forum. And Simon probably came around like 2011. But yeah, Toby's a very old character of mine. But let's see. For the basic story, Toby used to be a regular human, but at some point was imprisoned and tested on in some shady laboratory. The story doesn't focus too much on that actual time frame, though. It's more about when he escapes the laboratory and what his life is like after that. The story is like set more like in the real world, besides the genetic testing, very improbable. But besides that, Toby escapes, but he can't exactly go back to living his normal life now that he looks like a strange bat gargoyle mutant. So he just has to figure out what to do next. He lives on his own for a while, trying to avoid detection, living in fear of being recaptured and brought back to the facility. But one night, Toby realizes it's Halloween, and so he blends in with other people wearing costumes. And later that night, he officially meets Simon at a Halloween party. And Simon is a pretty laid-back, chill sort of guy, collects records, plays guitar, smokes weed, that kind of guy. And he helps hide and help Toby, when he gets injured and found out later at the Halloween party. And it's just basically what happens after that. Like, they start like a friendship, and slowly, like, I guess, more of like a relationship develops through time. Let's see. Yeah, and just like what life is like, and dealing with mental health stuff like anxiety, depression, and PTSD, that kind of that fun stuff.
Yeah, I guess it was interesting to me in particular because when I at least first saw like art of like Toby in particular, the first thing that came to my mind was like, I'm not quite sure what species it is. And I obviously I understand that that's because it was kind of an original creation through like experimentation in his backstory and stuff. But I think the thing that really stood out to me, and it was funny because I think K-Libra kind of touched on it, it did feel very like Don Bluth in the style, and like the idea of like telling a very kind of queer story that was like exploring stuff like kind of post TF in a way, with other elements we'll get to later, but it felt very unique, I guess, at the time, because in terms of a lot of the like long-term stories that I would often see told through like TF art spaces in particular, it would be very focused on, if there's like a sequence or a comic or whatever, it's kind of like this is depicting the change and then that's kind of it. And this was very much more focused on actual characters having actual dynamics with each other, which, like, I'm not saying that wasn't happening at that time in TF Spaces. That would be incorrect to say, but it definitely felt a lot more singular versus now, where I think there's like a lot of different examples of artists kind of doing that and exploring it. And I guess that like really stood out to me in terms of like the impact that it had when I saw it. And then I was like, interested to learn more. And I felt it was really interesting how you didn't immediately give people information. You kind of just like rolled it out slowly as you were kind of developing it. And in many ways, that's like the best way to hook people in. It's like, oh, I have all these questions and I don't know what the answers are. And I guess I'll just have to wait. I don't get everything all at once. I thought that was pretty cool at the time, at least.
Thank you.
Yeah. What's funny, now that you mention it with the whole dealing with trauma thing and thinking about Fern Gully does do that in like the super kid-friendly, flattened kind of way. And it can go over a lot of people's heads because it's really goofy and over a lot of kids' heads. But the idea that he doesn't want to go back to the facility the bat, and he's
Oh,
got like
right.
all the electrodes still stuck on him, and he's never quite right, just trying to
Yeah, I
get
can see
by in
that.
the
Yeah,
fucking
Batty.
rainforest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Batty.
his name's literally Batty.
Yes. Yep.
So, like, yeah, there you go. It's there. It's there for
Yeah.
the kids.
All the subconscious
Kids need
stuff
to
probably
know.
floating around. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, that kind of leads to my next question, which was like, obviously, he has a very unique appearance. That's the word. And I was curious to like learn a little bit more as to like what like directly inspired the design. I mean, maybe Ferngully was playing into it with Batty a little bit, but were there any like conscious elements that you were trying to incorporate when you were coming up with his design?
Yeah, I never even thought of Ferngully actually, but I think before I even had proto Toby, before that, like I was in high school, and this is super embarrassing to admit, but like, it was kind of like my like story thoughts of like, what if Aladdin became a gargoyle? Like, if he transformed into a gargoyle, and that was before I even knew what fan fiction was, so I never wrote anything like down, but I would like imagine little
Yeah.
scenarios like that sometimes. So I think that was like the seed of an idea that would later, kind of turn into like the Toby design a lot.
Yeah.
It was very heavily like gargoyles was like a really big uh, inspiration for sure. And let's see. Oh yeah, the tail was very inspired by Andalites from Animorphs. Yeah. Like the first designs, it was like one big blade, like a Animorph, Animorph, like a Andalite tail, and then like later on, it was like two blades because it's different, and then like later on, it's just two spikes, like they're basically like I don't know, yeah, just like bones basically or something sticking out, kind of bone blades. I don't know what they would be, but that was inspiration for that design too, and oh yeah, the first drawings of him had like the classic Disney gargoyle feet also with like the three toes. And then later on it turned
Oh
into like
yeah.
dog paws basically. And then now it's like hands, like bat hand feet. Yeah. So like a lot of little things. Like his ears and his muzzle got really big throughout time as I drew him. Yeah, so when he first started, he had like a really tiny muzzle, and then like over time, like as I kept drawing him more, right now he has like this huge snout and like these really big bat ears, and but yeah, I
Nice.
guess yeah, design wise, it's Disney's gargoyles and probably Andalites probably inspired the look the most.
Yeah. All right.
Nice.
I think I think Andalites are a pretty great way to just get into creature design because they're so weird,
Yeah.
and even if you don't
Yeah.
like them, your brain would go into problem-solving mode and start thinking, "How would I make this but good?"
Uh,
And then you get something you like anyway.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting to like kind of see how that evolution has kind of like come over time, because I was even just like, looking around in your gallery while I was talking, and I remembered like this was probably one of the first ones that I saw versus how you draw him now oftentimes with like the most current ref. And yeah, there's definitely been some like evolutions in terms of like how you approach him, and I think it's really cool that like there's been those iterations over time and such. I guess this actually probably would have been a better
Oh yeah, did you see the
comparison
first
since it's the
drawing that
old
I
ref sheet.
posted? Let me. I'm gonna find it. I'm bringing it up on
I'm
Twitter right now
sure.
because I posted it there. My super cringy.
I'm very
Let's
curious.
see.
You should see like my old character designs too, because I look at them and I don't necessarily feel embarrassed, but I'm like, wow, that was my standard. It's so different now. And the thing that I think people need to understand when they are concerned about old ideas being cringy or embarrassing is that people typically evolve, and then before you know it, sometimes you end up with either a very refined version of something that you're comfortable showing people, or you just really come to actually understand what you're looking to make, and then you express that too. So I don't really think there's a lot of shame in being embarrassed about it, because the funny thing is, like, even with like possibly my oldest character that I hold on to, it has elements of stuff I like in the old design. I just wouldn't put them all together now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I gotta say, he looks so sad in the first
Yeah.
drawing. He's so
It's my sweet hero
sad.
boy. Yeah.
That is, if I was going to pull out a dictionary and look for the definition of a sad wet
Yeah.
man, it would be that picture.
Yeah.
So
Oh my god. Yeah. No.
it's
Yeah,
great.
thank
I
you.
love it. I love it.
The origins. Yeah.
The
Uh-huh.
origins, yeah. Yeah, no, it's really cool. And yeah, definitely, like, as I said before, like, I think it was definitely one of the first examples also of, like, having, like, a kind of a queer relationship kind of blooming over time. And I mean, again, the aughts were a very different time.
Yeah.
Did you feel like it was kind of like taking like a big step out to kind of like do that, or did you feel kind of comfortable already because even the furry space at the time was already like more queer friendly?
I guess I never really thought it was like that big of a deal back then, I guess, because like, it's like on Fur Affinity and like, there's so much like queer art already on there, and I'm like, no one's gonna make a big deal out of this. And so yeah, I just say like, yeah, like I just didn't really think about it, I guess.
No, I mean, hey, that's great. I'm glad that like that you just felt very comfortable. It was like, yeah, whatever, I'm just doing this kind of thing. I definitely do think like at least furry spaces at that time were doing a lot better. The stuff that maybe was a little bit more probably was like a bit earlier than that, but I do recall a time when that might have been a little bit more and I'm glad that kind of came around at a time where it felt like totally comfortable to do that, because there were some characters around in the past. TM. So that's good. I also know that Simon, who we've kind of like touched a little less on so far, but I know that as part of his story, at some point he ended up becoming a werewolf, and so I was kind of curious to hear a little more about like how that ended up happening and why you kind of made that decision.
Oh yeah. It just started out with like just fun doodles, like what if, and I just had like a lot of fun drawing it. It's like drawing him as like a werewolf, and then I was like, why not make it canon? It's already like a implausible, silly little story, so like why not werewolves? So, but it would be like later on in the story because I feel it's important that Simon is a regular human when he first meets Toby. But like later on, like if this was like if I did actually make it like a webcomic, it would be like chapters later, like it would be a lot more further into the story, because it would be more fun to have like like a role reversal kind of where Toby has to help Simon when he's kind of like freaking out about things, and he's like, there to ground him. So it's just kind of to keep things, interesting, I guess, as the story does go along.
Would you ever consider making it into like a proper webcomic, or is that something that's like come into your head before and then you've kind of been like,
I started like 2 different times. Like there's like
I didn't realize that.
There's like maybe like 3 or 4 pages from like 2012, I think, on my FA, and then I took like a comic class when I was at school, like in what was it, like 2014 or something. So I made like the first 3 pages of that. I think like the comic pages is that like a reboot, and I wanted to keep going, but then like I feel like I have undiagnosed ADHD sometimes, and then like I have to do art to make money, and I just like run out of time or energy. But it's still something I really would like to do one day for sure. I think it would also be really fun to maybe try to make the story as like an animatic, because I majored in storyboard art. So I think it would be kind of fun to at least get like, major scenes and like make that as like an animatic, and like maybe even voice acting would be really fun, because I really love to hear, people trying that. So, but that's, something for the possible future. I would really like to do something with it, though.
Yeah. No, it's... Sorry, you were going to say something, Libra.
I was just thinking that's really great. I find it really advantageous when people get to actually learn how to make media, and then you can... I don't know. There's a way that you get to be taught to organize things, so that way, even if you don't know everything, you have a starting point. Because... unlike you, I didn't get any of that kind of training, and, I would want to make something like that. I would want to make something, but I have no idea where to begin, and, there's a lot of possibilities. and I think giving it a try is worthwhile.
Yeah, there's all kinds of like resources online. Like I guess, to get started one day.
Yeah, there is. For me, the problem is knowing that there are resources, but not knowing where to start.
Right.
You know
Yeah.
how,
It's
you know
daunting.
how, yeah, with everybody has a different learning style, but then on top of that, sometimes there's the expert's blind spots. So they'll be like, here's 12 simple rules for animation, and then you look at them all, and then you try executing them, and they're like, just do this. I'm like, but how do you do that thing? Well, it's simple, really. It's the first thing you do. No, wait, no, it's not. It's like, and a good example is when people are trying to learn art, and people get told like, why don't you try gesture drawings? And then as I was looking through art videos and resources over the years, it became apparent that gesture drawing is not the most basic thing you can do. It's actually a little bit ahead. It's more ahead than people realize, and that's because a lot of people who have been in art when they got introduced to gesture drawing think that it's kind of a basic, simple thing, but you still have to get a grasp on a few other things to really like get it, because gesture drawing can be hard for people too, and if the basic thing seems hard, it's like, what do you do? And then you feel locked out, and so on and so forth. The point is that if you're going to do something like tell a story, animate, things like that, there's got to be, not has to be, but it's best if you have some kind of entryway, some kind of starting point, something to work off of. So even if you're starting in the wrong place, you can navigate to a better place, like Berserk.
TF bingo.
And I bring up Berserk because when people asked the artist how he came up with certain pages and scenes and why he chose to do certain things, and really, apparently, it came out of a lot of American Hollywood movies, and he just really liked the stuff, so he adapted little things in there and built himself up from there, and yeah, with you having a storyboarding background, even if it's just on a student level, means you can say, I can put these things in these orders, and these little things mean this, and boom, you're good.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that, like you said, like having to balance between making commissions so that you can make a living versus having the time to create things is definitely always a challenge. And like Libra said, I feel like there's so many interesting ways you could break it out, break it down if you do end up going that route. It would also be great if you didn't have to sacrifice creative time to make commissions,
Yeah.
but that's a whole other conversation. But we could talk about that for ages,
Yeah.
probably.
I'm already there. I need to make more time.
Yeah.
I actually did make a animatic based on one of the scenes with Toby and Simon back in 2011. And I remember I posted that on FA, but I think when Flash died, it probably doesn't work right now. But I think it's on my YouTube as a hidden video right now. But I should revisit that one day and maybe even try to redo that one.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's definitely a lot of people who would be interested in seeing that, so it's definitely always a possibility. If I guess then, as a kind of a final question, I'm curious if you have any advice for folks who maybe want to craft sort of long-running stories with OCs related to post-TF stuff. If you have any insights or advice for them.
Don't be like me and actually write it down. Because I know I think of ideas especially at nighttime, when I'm trying to fall asleep or taking a shower thoughts, and oh, that would be really cool, and then I forget what they are later, there was something I was thinking that would be cool but as a scene, but now I can't remember. So write it down for sure, and just doodle any little ideas that you might have. It can be really ugly, really rough, but it'll be on paper, and then you can revisit it and make it more finalized if you wish. Think about what would you do in that situation for post TF. How would you feel? What would you do to survive? Could you go to anyone for help? And let's see, how would others react to you? If it's in a fantasy world, is it not unheard of, or is it looked down on, or just how would people view you, and just how would you navigate the world? Just asking yourself lots of questions, and I guess things like that.
Put yourself into that position,
Yeah, right.
into that body, into that form, into
Yeah.
that mindset.
Yeah, it's like the TF is over. Like, now what are you gonna do? Like, with your life? Like, how are you gonna navigate
Yeah.
things?
So very much a God, I wish that were me, but also, oh no, now what do I do?
Yeah.
So
Monkey's paw wish.
Yeah.
I mean, correct. I think that would be the case for many people. But awesome. Well, one of the other things I wanted to kind of ask about, and I know this kind of touches on some of the questions I was asking earlier around like how you came up with Simon, but like you've also like been involved in creating like original species for YCHs for a little while now. There's one I'll put that comes to mind as well. And I was kind of curious as to how you generally would come up with ideas with them, and in particular, like how you might think about like hybridizing different species when you're making them as well.
Yeah, like I usually just like start mindlessly drawing, like I'm not even like really thinking a lot of the time when I do start designing a character. I'm just like I start drawing like a bird head, and then I'm like, oh, it'd look cool if it had really long pointy ears. So I'll try that. And then like, what if it had like horns? And I just kind of like make it up as I go, and then like I'll have like a rough idea, and then later on, if I do like it, like I'll like adjust things and or like look at a reference of actual animals that it's based on,
Mm-hmm.
and just try to refine it a little bit more. Um, yeah, and then I know the example you posted, it's like kind of like these half transformed looking people. Yeah,
Yeah.
mutant adopts that I had. Yeah, those are always fun to make. But yeah, like I would just like where do I want to have like the fur or feathers at, and where do I want like bear skin showing, and like I like to leave like things like eyebrows and like something resembling hair, like feather hairdo or fur, kind of like as like a hair almost, I guess, to make it look
Mm-hmm.
as their human selves still. But I guess it's just finding the right balance, which can vary, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess I don't really think about it too much. I just kind of do it, I guess.
Yeah, and hey, I think that's entirely fair. I mean, sometimes it's like, yeah, the inspo just comes to you, and that's just what happens, which is like a totally
Yeah,
valid
it's like a
response,
stream of
honestly.
consciousness kind of thing.
Yeah. The overthinking things is really the enemy of creating things. So it's pretty good that it sounds like what you do is you want to put certain things together that you like and then reverse engineer it to have it make more sense to you.
Yeah.
If I get that correctly.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay, yeah. Makes sense to me. It also, like I said, it just keeps the momentum going rather than trying to justify, oh, that shouldn't be there. That's not what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just having fun with the design and like just like the body types you can come up with, like a long noodly dragon kind of character, or like a really big chunky like cow person character. It's just fun to play with like the different shapes you can have someone be,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
So, like, when it comes to having human elements, hair, eyebrows, and things like that, is it something that you think, I don't know, you just like having that kind of potential for body language with those kind of bodies? Because for some people, it's like they don't really care about that, but you brought that up specifically, and I don't really hear people talk about leaving those things in, specifically. It just seems kind of like a given for some people since it's been done online with a lot of art for a long time now. But like, I don't know. Could you say more to the idea of like what makes you want to keep those features?
Sorry, like keep like the features as in like what
Like
human part?
eyes, like the eyes are very human. The
Yeah.
eyes and the eye shape are very human. Like you said, you like to keep something that looks like what would have been a hairdo,
Yeah.
or or eyebrows.
The
Something that a face can work with.
Yeah.
Something cats can't do. Dogs have eyebrows and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah, I mean, like, even if you had, like, really realistic style in doing it, it still look cool, but I guess, for what I do, I like the more cartoony, I like to have expression. I guess that's, like, the most important thing when I draw, like, anything, really, is just the expressiveness that you can get with the face and, like, the body language, I feel. Like I find that
Mm-hmm.
really appealing. But like any style can be cool. But that's just what I do personally.
Yeah, of course. I just think that some people have, how do I put it? I guess they kind of build a philosophy around what they want to see out of a character and what makes it really good for them.
Hmm.
And I think it's nice to hear about people who want to like really be expressive with that sort of thing. Because again, it's not something that has really been brought up. It seems like a default for a lot of people, but it's not. It's a choice, conscious or otherwise.
I agree with you. But yeah, just trying to not really sure how
Yeah.
to build up on that.
You don't have to.
Yeah,
It's fine.
sorry.
If you happen to agree, that's cool for me and all that.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
just really wanted to make sure that I had an okay understanding of where you're coming from with what you're putting together and what you're trying to do. And incidentally, you'd like to keep the humanity in things
Yeah.
because it's also kind of fun to connect with that. And since art is expression and how you want to communicate it to people, that's one of the things that makes all these cartoons that we grew up with really special and stick with us, right? They weren't just like animals and oh, I kind of don't get it until I grow up. You get it right there. If it's like the little cartoon fox or the little cartoon whatever or the cartoon like goblin or something like that happens to be the hero or something, they got those faces, they got that body language. That's what I do. I feel like that. Looks like me when I'm feeling really good, and that's something that carries over, and it has real staying power.
Right. Definitely.
E- Even when you're turned into something else completely. And that's really cool too. Which, just one more point is how you can work with the opposite and working through the idea that you don't know if the person is there or not and trying to communicate that way. It's like a completely different kind of struggle. I think that's the thing that gets a lot of that it's like the other half of the big thing that I think people really enjoy. You can't talk anymore. You can't you don't have hands pretty much. You can't make faces, and then people end up enjoying the prospect of what's it like to cope with that. That's like the other side of it, and again, that's a conscious decision too. But it also makes for like a different kind of journey between the artist and the viewer. Now I'm thinking about that too when it comes to what am I doing?
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. And one of the things I kind of like, and this has kind of been touched on now already, but to like piggyback off of what Libra said, I think it's really interesting that, there's those specific traits that you call out and like that bringing along with the humanity. And I guess I'm curious, are there any other like traits from like other species that you like to pull in? Because I know, like, for example, you've mentioned, oh, what if X thing had horns? I'm wondering if there's any like animal traits that you like to go to in particular to also pull in to like kind of highlight, yes, there's still humanity there, but also there's
Yeah.
the monstrous or what have
I
you.
like anything with like really big ears because you can like really be expressive with like big ears, like have them fold back when they're
Yes.
scared or angry, and perk forward. Like they're really expressive. So yeah, I guess that, and let's see, I guess like tails in general. I really love having like tails that you can express with. Like different animals do it in different ways, like cats versus dogs,
Mm.
but just having that to a character adds a lot with what you can do, like to show how they're feeling. Um, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
trying to think.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen,
Yeah.
as a Lombax, I approve of the ears point,
Uh huh.
so
Yeah.
you're not going to hear any complaints from me there. Yeah, I find that like animals do so much expression through, like you said, like tails and ears and such, and I think any TF artist who is worth their salt knows how to like incorporate certain animalistic kind of like expressing and such into some of their pieces when when the situation is there. And I've definitely seen what you're talking about in terms of how you translate those traits into these sorts of species, either as part of a TF or as in kind of kind of what we've been talking about in terms of like creating those original species. And
Yes, so good.
I'm a sucker for big ears, so as previously stated. So I mean,
HoneyBear also
no
likes
complaints
big
here.
ears.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. They do a very good job with them. They do a very good
Nice.
job with lombaxes.
Man, I would do something to those
It all comes back to lombaxes.
those ear flaps. They fuck with me. They like there should be something here that isn't there.
Listen. They don't
Wait.
have to make sense. They just
Has a Ratchet ever swam? Does he need air?
Oh yeah.
Fuck.
Yes,
Could
he
tuck
does.
gills behind them.
Oh.
That would have been funny and very interesting. But
They're
That's
alien
great.
ears, though, right? So, like, we don't know how they work exactly.
Yeah, there's been like people have speculated on it. I mean, I've definitely seen one person who said maybe there's just very small ear holes that are covered with fur, and so you just don't know, or like you don't see them. I've seen someone say maybe they are actually like basically like furry eardrums in the sense of like it's like a membrane maybe that you like hear through, which sounds cool. When I think about it, it's kind of horrifying, so I'm not sure if I'm fully on board with that one. But yeah, we don't really know how they work, so it's just kind of
Yeah,
like
they pick up the sound waves.
ear flaps,
Yeah.
I guess. But they're very big. Yeah, that's what I like to think. But yeah, I feel like you could do a really interesting like monstrous sort of take on them, because there's actually a lot of like different features they have that again are very incongruous with one another, especially their feet. I don't know, not to make this a podcast about feet, but the Lombax feet actually look very strange as well, in the sense that they are almost like plantigrade human feet, but there's no toes. It's just claws. It's not like, oh, there's like a toe with a claw at the end. No, they're just like these massive claws that could probably shred through a lot of things. So whatever
He wears
shoes he's
shoes?
wearing must be made of like fucking titanium.
Oh, okay. I never
It's
played the
actually
games. I'm just,
Yeah,
I mostly know them from
most
the
of
art you
in
have.
almost all the games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, well, I'm glad. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, it's
You
a
have
while
done a
ago
Lombax
now.
TF
Yeah.
for me. That was very good. So thank you as well for that. Yeah, but yeah, no. It's funny. Yeah, no. In the games, like, I think except for the first game and maybe like one of the PSP spin-offs, he is wearing boots all the time. So it's
Maybe
like
he's ashamed.
those shoes, that whatever leather, whatever, must be like
Yeah.
made of titanium.
Got those big kangaroo disemboweling toes. Or big claws. Yeah.
I was thinking of that too.
Yeah.
Don't they have like a
Seriously.
side claw too, like a smaller
Yeah.
one facing the outside?
those-
Yeah, that always kind of throws me off because I want to
Yes.
draw it on the inside of the foot,
Yeah, they have a
but then
dew
like
claw.
it's actually on the outside. Yeah.
Yeah. It has tripped up many a person as well. Honestly, I find that anytime I commission any sort of like Lombax TF, it's someone. The two common mistakes are someone puts like an ear thing, like, oh, it must have like an inside. I'm like, no, there's no inside for the ear. And then the feet, people are like, what the fuck? And usually, honestly, there's like I'll have to find it. We can flash it in the video, but there's like a guide off of like DeviantArt that's like, this is how you're supposed to draw Lombax feet, which is very funny to me because clearly someone got like really upset about it and was like, I'm gonna
Very
make
passionate.
a fucking thing, and I'm like, dude, it's not that serious, but it's very funny. So, oh my god. Yeah, no, I think it's really cool how you incorporate a lot of these things into like kind of the original species that you make. And I guess like as kind of like a last point, are there any species that you've created that you find really lend themselves towards like being transformed into at all? Because I know like one of the example I showed had like TF kind of built into it, but are there any like specific ones that come to your mind as being like, oh yeah, that's one that people would definitely be
I
into,
actually
like,
have
getting
done a couple
transformed
TFs for
into?
people who bought the adopts. I did like a TF with there's one where they're like those Highlander cows, I think they're called. You know, like with the hairdos. Yeah, like I did
Yeah,
a
Highland
mutant
cows.
adopt.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
they're really cute. I did a TF for that for a friend who bought one, and I did one for is it in there? It's like a kangaroo with horns guy. Yeah, he's in the example that you posted. Yeah, I did a TF thing.
Oh yeah.
I think I did. Yeah, no, I did. I remember now. Yeah, so yeah, some of them already, have gotten a TF treatment, and I feel like anything could be transformed, really. I mean, it's just how well you execute it, but there's nothing that you can't TF things into. I don't know.
Yes, literally.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to do a TF for any species, really.
Yeah.
There's like nothing that like, oh, that wouldn't work very well.
Nice.
Even chimpanzees and stuff, that'd be fine. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I think all animals
definitely.
are ripe for transforming into. I mean, the thing I always think back to is like, it's obviously not like fully complete, but transfer has like the species list on it, where if you want to like find like a TF of like walrus or whatever, like you can find all the walrus TFs on transfer, and I feel like that list isn't even all encompassing, but there's nothing on that list that I would be like, that wouldn't be an interesting TF to try and like create within. I might have preferences around like what I might like more than another one. Fuck Canadian geese, but in general, like I think all of them would lend themselves well to like interesting transformations. So,
I need to TF you into Canadian geese or goose now. Yeah, geese.
Are you not vile enough to be friends with the geese?
I have genuinely like. No, listen. I had this. There's this meme I had with my ex, and I will repeat it here because it is a good meme. There are so many things I would like to be transformed into. If someone wanted to truly torture me, they would TF me into a Canadian goose, because I would be fucking miserable.
Why?
I would be so fucking miserable with that transformation. I would be as pissed off as the geese are all the time.
What about like any other species
of
goose?
I would not want that one.
Oh, okay. All right.
Most other geese are fine. It's just that one.
Interesting.
It's just that one. I don't know. I have unique stories and back lore, back lore with Canadian geese, and it's on site.
Canadian goose trauma.
It is on site.
It's
so
valid.
Yeah. But yeah. Awesome. So there was one last thing I wanted to kind of touch on, and that's kind of about the comic creation process, because I know that one of the things that you've done actually a significant amount of, both like in terms of your personal work, but also through like commission openings and auctions and what have you, is creating comics. And I've always found that you're very effective at communicating transformation through that lens. And I was curious to hear more about what drew you to those formats, and I suspect, based on some of the things we've learned, I imagine the storyboarding element.
It's basically like into it. Like a more condensed storyboard, I guess, in a way. I know, comics is definitely its own art form. I feel like I'm not even that good at comics, like with the panel layout that people, you can do really cool things with it, but I feel like mine's so basic. But, but yeah, I do like, just showing like. It's good to show the sequence and have like a bit of a story for I usually do like 2 or 3 pages per TF comic lately, so I just feel like it's a good way to do like a little short story and like have enough time to show like reaction shots, so, like how the characters are feeling about it as they go through the process.
I agree. I mean, I think it's a really cool way. Like, it's a very cool medium, of course. I think we all have some sort of like appreciation for comics in some sense, and obviously it not only because of the nature of the medium, like it lends itself to telling a story, but also like I think you've done in some of your pieces, like you can then effectively communicate a story visually, which has always been the benefit of a comic. Definitely there's like really cool layouts that folks can do. I personally think you do a great job with the layouts that you use, so I wouldn't disparage that. But I also think that and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this too, Libra. But like I feel like comics in particular, I think people visualize and think of them as like, oh, it's just something you just show a bunch of pictures or whatever. But like creating a good comic is way more work and effort than just that. You can't just like slapstick put shit down. And I think sometimes people misunderstand that because they're used to seeing good comics and then just are like, oh, it must be easy. And it's like, no, there's many ways.
I don't know what a good comic stands for with a lot of people, because people have just done it in so many really creative ways where they play with the panels. Like if I make something, I would want to feel like I could play with the panels and make that part of the art, but that's something that my brain hasn't wrapped itself around. But then you can do something like Watchmen. Have either of you read Watchmen?
Parts of it. I never finished it. Yeah.
Okay. So if you remember Watchmen,
Same.
that comic was almost exclusively laid out as like 3x3 panels. Every single page was just 9 panels, and then there were like some full pages, and there were some breaks, but almost everything was just 9 panels. And you know, that sounds really fucking boring, but they wrote it so well. First of all, again, can't flub the writing. Thank you, Lemon. And also, you know, the art was still doing its work. Everything was working together. And then, you know, if you feel like your paneling is basic, maybe maybe it's doing what it needs to do. Maybe you got your effort put into something else. You know, there's just so many ways to do it. And when people say they're used to good comics, I don't really know what that means. I'd have to just talk to the person who says that. Like, when you say like good comics, what do you think of?
I mean, I guess when I think about good comics, and maybe this is a function of I haven't read a ton, but the ones I've read have been like well reviewed, and then I've been impressed. But like, I think about good comics that like. Sorry, let me take a step back. To define a good comic, at least from my perspective, like you said, you can't flub the writing. It has to be well written. The visual design has to be distinctive, because otherwise everything just like blends into the same on the page. Like, there need to be distinctive features for characters and what have you. And the flow from a panel to the next one makes logical sense. And I guess when I say like makes logical sense, it's either like, oh, you know, if it's trying to show something in motion, you get the clear sense of motion. Or if you're just trying to show different angles in a scene or whatever, your brain can parse that, oh, this is still the same scene, we're just looking at a different angle, or we're looking at a different character, or what have you. And I feel like, at least from the comics that I have read, they've always been good at doing that. The times I've seen it less good is actually when it gets in more into the realm of like web comics and like people who are just kind of like faffing around. And to be clear, I've read many good web comics, but that's where it's kind of stood out, where sometimes I'd be like, oh, this person doesn't know how to storyboard, or like doesn't really know how to like communicate either through the art or through the writing what they're trying to do within the lens of comics. And so I kind of mention all of that because, at least from the stuff that I've seen, I feel like Ember has a good handle on that, and that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, it's not easy. Folks. When people say they want, like, for instance, a comic commission or something like that, I really need to stress that if you're asking somebody to make a comic for you, you have two choices. You either contract them and work closely with them and work very clearly, and you have to keep paying them until it's over, or you pay them what they ask and you let them do what they think needs to be done with what you told them. Those things are so intensive because you need to understand who's going to be doing what at any time. Like you said, you know, between like the style and trying to write it well. And if you're writing it well, you got to know what characters are going to be doing what, why they might say something, what are they going to be doing in this panel, if anything, are they going to be there? There's so much to take into account. So I think it definitely is taken for granted, especially when, like, you know, there are like clever artists who just are able to express a lot with very little, you know, and Ember has a following because the appeal is there and it's executed well. So I'm just thinking to myself, if you're going to be like, what makes good comics? Yeah, a lot goes into it. I think trying to distill what you're trying to distill and understand what you want to do will get you on a pretty good path. If you want to be like meta, if you want to just really lean into abstraction, if you want to just have people focus on what people are talking about more than anything, then you learn to work with that, but you have to be aware of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Anyways, this is a long
thank
way
you. I
of us
appreciate
saying
it.
we really like HoneyBear comics. But something I've always wanted to ask is, because you've done a lot of like comic YCHs and auctions, I imagine that there's a lot of pressure that comes in from like the commissions angle, and so I was curious to learn a little bit more as to like how you generally navigate that, and like navigating like creating them and like in tandem with the commissioners and such, because as Libra previously said, like it can be quite difficult to make a good one, and sometimes I imagine folks are kind of like, oh, they might have a specific vision, but that doesn't necessarily make sense from a storyboarding perspective or what have you. So I'm just curious to understand how you manage that like workflow and stuff.
Yeah, I guess it really depends. Like some people, like I would get commissions, and it's just kind of like the idea of what they want, and like try to spread that through, like if they paid for like 2 pages or 3 pages, and like I'll like have like little rough thumbnails and try to pace it well. And then sometimes people have like really specific things that they want for like each page, basically, which is fine too. But just we'll also do like roughs and just try to get that layout right. Um, let's see. Yeah, it can get a little daunting to even start sometimes, because it's usually like the most expensive things that I will have up for people to purchase. So I'm like, don't mess it up. They paid good money for this. Like, don't mess this up, please. And so like it can be a little slow going sometimes, because I have anxiety and I worry a lot about that kind of thing. But like I usually just try to break it down to like one step at a time. Like, don't focus on like everything you have to do. Just like, okay, just make the rough sketches and then send that for approval. And then like, okay, they like this and they just want a change on this panel. And okay, now I'm just gonna focus on the next step and just do like the inks and then show that to them, and get approval, and so on, throughout the different steps, which is basically, yeah, roughs, inks, flat color, and shaded without any other effects like the dialogue. But yeah, just like try not to like think about everything I have to do, or I'm going to get really overwhelmed. Yeah.
Almost like just like setting out like, okay, this is the first step, and then
Yes,
we'll do the
yeah,
next
definitely.
step, then just kind of going from there.
Because yeah, I'm gonna get yeah, like paralysis from just like, oh god, there's so much I have to do still. So it's good to just break it down into little chunks.
I would speculate that, yeah, that ADHD thing.
Yeah,
might be a thing,
yeah.
'cause
I need to get
I
diagnosed or
resonate with
something.
that.
Yeah. It can be really
Coffee
hard.
makes you sleepy,
Well,
Yeah.
as
or just doesn't work.
oh yeah,
Aw,
that's a
yeah.
big sign. Yeah.
Amphetamines
Caffeine
calm me
wish.
down.
Um,
That's normal.
we love legal meth. Yeah, it's wild, and I mean, as we've kind of talked about before, the inaccessibility
Oh, yes.
of the health system is not great, and it really needs to change.
Protect it in Canada. Please protect it in
yeah,
Canada. Please protect it in Canada. If you people actually value this, you will protect it. Kind of at all costs. Do it.
Trying to make
Don't...
it like America up there?
Yeah.
Oh.
There has been
yeah,
words about
you
privatization
cannot ever
stuff,
let that.
So
you can't. Don't do it. Don't. No concessions. No nothing.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh, we need this. So that blah blah blah. No. You keep your hands off the healthcare always, you ghouls.
Yes. Gotta riot against that.
100%.
Oh, that's not a great idea.
No, I think there would be, but yeah, I guess the last question I kind of wanted to ask on the comics front, obviously they're very much like a pretty big time sink from versus comparing like a single image. And so I was curious how you kind of approach the project so that you don't burn out, because you've created a lot of them, and I imagine there's been times where maybe it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this like for a while, blah blah blah. And I'm just curious how, like, if you felt burnout,
Yeah,
and B,
yeah,
how you then
definitely.
navigated it.
Sometimes like I think like before I took on a few commissions, like comic commissions at once, like some years ago, and I was like, what have I done? but but yeah, I know,
Oh,
like
I
just like
feel your
yeah,
pain.
but yeah, like I said
Yeah.
before, is like break it down into like the chunks and like don't focus on like on the big like everything that has to be done, or I'll go crazy if I like start worrying about everything. And what was I gonna
Yeah.
say? Oh yeah, it's good to take breaks for sure. Like if you're like stuck on something, like maybe take a day or two off and like just do something else, and then like come back and hopefully you'll be able to do it
Hmm.
okay. What you're having issues with, and if not, I just remember I really need money and like just power through it, just like work through the pain. Yeah.
I'm
So
reminded
yeah.
of Cobalt when we had Cobalt K on, and he was
Oh
telling us
yeah.
about his comic process and like what a harrowing journey it was, and that he had this period of time where he was stuck in this I should be working on this loop, so I shouldn't do anything fun until I'm done, and he just ended up not doing anything
Oh
enjoyable and
no.
just getting more wound up about the project, and
Oh
it just didn't work. So yes, please heed Ember's advice on taking those breaks, because
yeah.
you don't want to end up hating what you have to do, or feel like you're failing, or all this other fucking shit that could just pollute your mind.
Definitely.
Completely agree. It's really good advice, frankly, and yeah, I think a lot of people would do well to heed it, because yeah, you definitely don't want to end up in a situation where it's like that negative feedback loop of just being stuck and like not actually making progress, and also like being upset with yourself the whole time. Because yeah, it's not great. I definitely, I mean, I again, I don't make art for a living, even though I do commissions on the side, and like I'm doing like a break from them right now because it just was like completely permeating my creativity in a negative way. So I have like the utmost respect for people who do that like on a day-to-day basis, because yeah, the potential for burnout and then that interfering with like your ability to like make a living is kind of terrifying. And I'm sure I'm not saying anything you haven't thought of before, but I have the utmost respect for that,
Yeah,
is what I'm
it can
trying to
be
say.
hard, but yeah, it's also like it can be fun too. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
There's
no, that's true.
the like you can be free, but freedom means you're not necessarily. How do I put it? It's this actually ties
Hmm.
into the point you had to make about you're transformed. Now what do you do? I like the prospect of being my own boss and taking my own time and making my own decisions for my own resources. But then what do you do? How do you deal with it? You're
Yeah.
trading you're trading like one set of concerns for another, and you do need to manage them, or else nothing is going to work out, and you're
Yeah.
going to have a new set of problems. So it's very good to keep in mind that whatever you do, uh, actually, yeah, whatever you do, just do something. Try not to freeze up. Do something.
yeah.
Actually, I think the other question I just asked related to like burnout, and I guess specifically when it comes to comics, um, have you ever found yourself in a position where like you were just hitting these different roadblocks, and besides kind of the tactic you've mentioned before, were there any other like innovative ways you had to like try to like implement to like navigate out of that like roadblock within like making comics?
Yeah, I guess it's just like if I have like a issue going on with like some comic that I owe. Um, it's just mostly like the only thing I have in
Mm-hmm.
mind, I guess, is just take a break from it, like walk away, like do something else, or even if it's like a few days, I don't want to
Yeah.
like take too long, but it's always good to like step away, so, and come back with like fresh eyes. And then like
Mm-hmm.
if that doesn't work,
Oh
like
yeah.
I know it's not the best, but just like I just try to power through it. Like I need to get this done because I need to make money, and I just need to like figure out how to solve this problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything else.
No, I still think that's good advice, and I always ask because I find that especially folks who are maybe earlier in their art journey and are trying to like see how they can like quote unquote make it or whatever. I think sometimes there's this impression that like folks who have been doing it for a while
Yeah.
like just don't encounter these problems or something, which is like the furthest thing from true you could ever possibly think, in my opinion. And so I think it's always good to like be
Yeah.
open about these discussions, so that's why we ask. And I think that that advice is very sound, frankly, and I think in many ways I think all three of us have probably had to do something in that lens, even if it's been for varying levels of like
Yeah.
urgency or what have you. So
If I may add to that, yeah, when I've been in those spots a lot, I also powered through a lot of things, but you have to be mindful that at some point it's going to catch up to you. I think the powering through can be fine, but you have to pace yourself. So between like the resting isn't just for like general work thing, especially if you're taking a lot of time. If there's like a big stretch where you find yourself just like really grinding, then you will need to take a step back, because if you don't, then you will burn out and then you won't be able to do anything, and we don't need that. Nobody needs that. And besides, that's the other thing to keep in mind. Powering through doesn't need to be the standard. It's one of your tools. It's one of the ways that you end up like managing your responsibilities, your agreements, all that other kind of stuff. And like sometimes you just kind of do it and you bear it a bit. But the powering through thing, use it sometimes, but only sometimes.
Yeah, it's like last resort. Like try to find a more healthy way, I guess, to solve the issue. But if worse comes to worse, yeah, you can just try to power through it and then take a break after that. Like let you have have a rest period, like a cool down.
Yeah.
Yeah, stress is generally okay. We can deal with stress. We actually need some stress in our lives that needs to be managed. And I mean, I think that if you're still creating, and especially if you're still creating for money, then you're probably doing well enough. But, always be mindful, because this stuff always catches up to you. If it catches up to not just your health, but if your body starts to screw up, like I developed a problem with my shoulder or my wrist, and I had to work through those. And when you have those problems, it makes drawing feel uncomfortable, which makes feeling miserable, and so on, and everything just cascades. And then before you know it, you're like, oh man, it's because I didn't have like this kind of setup, or this or that, or I forgot about this, or I thought this was okay to do. It's you have to pay attention to yourself. And it's if you're still creating, then good, but pay attention.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Well, we did have some audience questions that I wanted to make sure we had time to get to. And the first one comes from Leaf Wine. And Leaf Wine asks, imagine both your first and your worst, according to your opinion, TF-related art piece that you've created coming to life. Both ask you to remake them in your current style. Which one would you take on first, and how would you justify your choice to the other art piece? Very esoteric question. I don't know if anyone wants to
go for it.
Whatever.
I'm trying to parse the question.
Yeah. Okay. So, my first art piece that I ever made was a very, very, very basic, like photo manip of myself with my face changing. It was, I think, a dog TF. It exists somewhere in the like crevices of my hard drive. The worst TF art piece that I've ever made is probably the one that got brigaded. So we'll put a pin in that. If I had to pick one to remake, I would probably pick my first one. And the reason why, very selfishly, is the stock was of myself for that one, and it wasn't for the one that I think is my worst. And I think it would be a more interesting and cool experiment to redo the very first piece that I ever made. I could probably do the one that I did that I consider really bad again, and it would look a hell of a lot better. But frankly, I've never really been inspired to redo that. It's actually part of a sequence. I've never been inspired to redo any of that part because in my mind, it's always going to be kind of like, eh. And like, that's fine. It means it's just a piece that I can mark my progress against. So I don't really ever feel the need to remake it because I'm just doing more interesting stuff now anyways. So if I had to pick, it would be my first piece.
Ember, you got an answer yet?
I would also go with my the first one because it's more interesting. To me to compare like the first TF. We're talking about TF art, I assume. But yeah, the first TF art that I've done compared to like what I can do now. So it's always fun to compare like the oldest thing with the newest thing. And I would be really scared if they were talking to me, like the two. Yeah, that'd be really terrifying, and I would try to them.
I mean, yes.
I would tell the other one I would do them after I do the oldest first, and then I will do them. And don't get mad with me.
I'm almost imagining like cartoon version, like it is just a static image with like arms, legs, and like eyes and a mouth on top or something. Like
it's holding like a knife, threatening.
Like, yeah. Or whatever. I don't know how else to visualize.
It's like, don't hurt me, please.
Yeah.
I would pick my worst one
you,
first because my worst one is one that I was really ambitious with, and even when I look at it now, I really don't like it. You know, I don't like it. People didn't like it. It's one of those comments that I remember with like disdain that was left on it. It was the one where somebody said there's something wrong with this piece, and I asked them what, and their actual response was, I don't know, just something about it. I'm like, thanks, fucking thank you. I never did something like this before, but fucking thank you. And so I think about that, and I also just think, man, you know, I understand what I was trying to do, and I think I could do it now. So, you know, with that piece, you know, feeling like my worst one, like asking me, like, you know, please fucking help me, I'll be like, don't worry, I got you. And what I would say to my first piece was, you were very simple. You seem pretty okay. If I were to show people, you'd be like, oh, that's fine. That's good. Some people might even think like, ooh, that's really good. Because it was so simple, and there was so little to screw up. But you know what? I'll update you as soon as I'm done with this one, and we'll all be happier.
Awesome. The next question we have is from Other Side, and Other Side asks, what is the most expensive commission that you have ever created?
In progress.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
In progress.
Nice.
I can't fucking believe it.
Aww.
In progress. You'll see it soon enough.
Ooh.
Yes, I'm excited for it. I mean,
is it like a sequence,
I know
or if you're allowed to?
I will not say anything.
Go into details.
Oh my fucking god! It's a sequence, and God, if I wasn't doing it the way I'm doing it right now, I will have bit off more than I could chew. Actually, you know what? With how much I'm being paid, if I was doing it by myself, it would still be worth that much. But, but thankfully, I am working with HoneyBear, and we're gonna make something good. We're gonna make good things, and people just gotta trust us to know what we're doing. So yeah, that's in progress. I just don't want to say how much. It's just easily a record breaker. And I will say that some of the most expensive commissions I've done just by myself have exceeded like $600. And that was me being grossly overpaid. But so right now it's happening.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing it.
Hell yeah.
Oh,
How
me
about
now?
you?
Yes. Oh, okay, yeah. It would be like the last
Yes.
public comic auction that I did would have been the most. You know, I just had that up on my. I think it was like for Affinities where the bidding was, but I also like had it on Twitter for a link to the FA auction. But yeah, that one was definitely the highest.
Oh yeah.
And I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Good. Get fucking paid.
Yeah.
Nice.
I know.
Yeah, we love.
It's nice to know that
getting
people
paid,
are interested
to be frank.
in buying the art, so it makes me feel good too.
Yeah, let them do it.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely, and
thank
you deserve every penny
also.
of it. So I'm very glad.
I appreciate that.
I think the most expensive commission I've ever done. I don't actually know the number, even if I was trying to remember, but I know this one was definitely the most one. I did 16,000.
Big one.
That sounds like a fucking joke.
It was a big one, yes.
That sounds like a joke. It sounds like total
I'm
bullshit.
dead-ass
And I
serious.
know it's real, but it sounds like total bullshit.
So I was working with my friend Elephant Bro, and it was a 16-part Templeton TF from Charlotte's Web, and I did once it was done. I did say I'm never doing something this long again. But I will say at least we broke it into chunks, so I did it in like sections of 4. I didn't do like, this is the only thing I'm working on now, because that would have probably killed me creatively. But yeah, I did a
How long
16
ago
part
was
sequence.
that?
That was definitely the most expensive one I've ever done. I think it was in 2018, 2019. I know Miles is gonna
Miles who
later,
Prower,
but yeah, it was like I think
okay.
20 Elephant Bro. But I think it was 2018. Yeah. It was a beast of a commission, but I'm still actually pretty happy with how it turned out, and he was happy with it. And,
dig it.
Yeah. Awesome. And then the last question I actually had here, somewhat topical. I think they'll be done by the time this comes out. But Pythos Cheetah asks, you get to participate in the Olympics, but you have to be TF'd into a Pokemon first. What event do you choose, and which Pokemon?
I
know
the Olympics.
Yeah.
What sport? What?
You can pick.
I have to pick a sport too.
I need to look at a list of all the sports.
Yes.
I'd be either a Raichu or Mewtwo though, because I collect the merchandise in real life. So I feel like it would be wrong if I wasn't one of those two.
Oh hell yeah!
But yeah, I'm not sure which sport though.
So I can go actually.
Yeah.
So I can go actually. So I would pick Kartana. I'm assuming I can TF back because I don't want to be this thing permanently. But I would pick Kartana, and I would do fencing. Because it's literally like a fucking sword. So I think I would do pretty good at fencing on that one. That would be my pick. I will say there was part of me that was like, I really wish they'd done sword, shield, and gun, because then I would have picked whatever the gun one was, and then I would have done that for shooting, because now everyone's learned shooting is an Olympic sport, apparently. So that's what I would have done. But that is not an option, so I will stick with my original answer.
Oh my god.
What's the thing where the discs are thrown in the air? Wait, is that one where you can shoot them out of the air, like for the Olympics?
Shooting skeet?
Yeah, like maybe I'll be a Raichu and I can zap them with my lightning bolts. Because Raichu kind of looks a little bit like my Sona in a way, compared to Mewtwo. And I just picked that because it's something I can do with lightning. I don't know.
Wow, it is
Okay,
I didn't know that was an Olympic sport. It is indeed an Olympic sport. Yeah, the winner this year was Vincent Hancock from the U.S. Got the gold medal for mixed men's skeet. Fun fact! Oh, and for women's skeet, it was Francisca Crovedo Shadid from Chile.
Yeah.
So, they're fun facts. I didn't know that was an Olympic sport, so that's actually really cool.
Man, I'm
still thinking Libra.
Trying to think of something, because you see, again, you're like, oh, you can pick any one. Yeah, I can. It's like there's weightlifting, wrestling, there's fucking there's fucking gymnastics, there's so many things. Skeleton. I don't know what skeleton is.
Skeleton.
What is skeleton?
I have one of those.
No, it's just called skeleton.
Skeleton
It's on the
Pokemon?
list of Olympic sports. It's
Or
just
sport?
flatly called skeleton.
Oh, it's a
Interesting.
winter sliding sport. It's like those ones where like, well, now we'll have to put this in the episode. It looks like this. You're going down like a track on like a board. It's kind of like bobsledding, but you have to lie face down and head
Never
first.
Sounds
heard of
dangerous.
this.
That's skeleton. It's often called skeleton bobsled. That's usually how they talk about it. I don't know why they've shortened it on Wikipedia
Spooky.
to skeleton, because then it's like, what the fuck is this? But it's supposed to be skeleton bobsled. That's what it.
Okay.
That's what it actually is.
I see a sport that I think could be fun, and I would just have to think of like what I would want to be. Okay, so first of all, handball.
Which sport is it? Oh,
Handball
handball's a good
could
one,
be
yeah.
fun, but like, oh man. Okay, yeah. I'm just gonna go with reflex of Reuniclus because big squishy hands, and also, I don't know. I'll try to be fast enough to actually do something interesting, and also not use any kind of telekinesis or something.
Being a
But you can float
Vaporeon in the
around
pool would
and
be awesome.
you know all that shit. If you're competing against other Pokemon, though,
Yeah.
whoa, what a crapshoot!
Yeah, that really would be. Oh man, but hey, I support that. I think that's pretty cool. Awesome. Well, that was all the questions I had. I don't know if
I don't
you
know if
have any
anyone
questions
ever
for us,
asked
Ember.
this. They probably have, and I just forgot. But what is your process for doing a podcast?
Oh, that's actually a great question.
No, we haven't.
I don't know if we've been asked that before, but generally speaking, the way that we go about making an episode, Libra and I, and in consultation with other folks we know who are cool, we'll talk about like potential options from like a guest perspective. We'll then like reach out to them and be like, hey, you want to be on this podcast you may or may not have heard of? If they're cool with it, usually what we'll do is we'll talk about potential topic options, which usually we'll come up with by looking through their art and, you know, having an understanding of, you know, their gallery and such. So we'll offer some options and also be like, hey, if there's any topics you'd like to suggest, we're like very happy to jump on them because you also know yourself better than we do. Once we get those topics, I will usually go away and kind of draft out an outline with like questions and such. We'll get approval from the guest, and then we'll kind of eventually corral them into our Discord and do a recording. And then oftentimes Libra will go away and do some of the editing at the end, and that's how you get a nice snazzy YouTube video. as
And
well as an
with
audio
that, they're
only version.
indoctrinated into the cult, and one more joins.
Oh yeah, when are we getting the robes?
Robes?
The
I'm
matching
working
robes.
on it. I swear. Just
I
keep
keep
giving
asking
me
that.
your money.
Okay.
Yeah. We're like the saddest.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. You just have
Like,
to
robes
believe.
at, like,
Faith
what
is the
this?
strongest thing in anything. So just money. Give it to me. Money, and don't question too much.
All right.
Ask nice questions like when the next time you're going to give me money is. Yeah, and sometimes, but like more seriously, yes, what Zil said is pretty much how we do it. Also, just if there's really particular topics that we just want to get into, we'll do it. It's our show. We know we can do whatever we want, and generally we're trying to like keep a certain standard because it is nice to keep with the trend of, you know, speaking to different people in the community and, you know, making sure that that's part of this show's identity for as long as it can go. But yeah, sometimes we will just talk about a thing, or if there's like a piece of media that like we're really inspired by, like we did with the Animal Kingdom. People were just talking about it. We watched this, like, okay, we have to talk about this now. I mean, like, you know, nobody made us, or, you know, that wasn't like, oh yeah. And then there's also if you're a patron and you vote on the polls, you know, if it wins,
Topics,
then
yes.
we also talk about it. We got a bunch of different ways to come at a bunch of stuff from different angles, and yeah, so between what Zil said and just us feeling like this is important enough for us, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. How long does
Any other
editing usually
questions?
take you?
Oh, that depends.
Yeah.
That always depends.
Uh-huh.
So if we had if we were like really big boys and we had a studio and everything, then there would be very controllable things. Like this is the microphone everybody uses. This is what everybody records on. But we're doing this online, and most of the time, if Zilla's not sitting next to me or whatever, like Zilla and I have really consistent quality, flubs and weird things and background noise. That's like to a minimum, or if we have it, it's expected and it's easy enough to work around. But depending on other people's like hardware or software, what they can record on, all this kind of stuff, it could lead to having to solve problems. The length of the episode could mean, like how much do I really have to like comb through. Sometimes it's simple, sometimes it's not. If certain things come up and like just need to be cut, I need to make sure that it sounds as natural as possible. If like I don't know, like somebody takes a phone call in the middle of the recording, stuff like that, or if we lose contact or anything, it always depends.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at the phone call one because that is a very specific call out to me with my job happened actually fairly recently. Which I mean,
yeah,
I felt
and then it's gathering resources. What can I show? What shouldn't I show? What's worth showing? I could stick a little nod or flair to a bunch of stuff, but is it worth it? With this, for instance, with this episode, I'm going to know generally what I'll want to show. For a video. And then, also the complexity of the video itself will depend on how long it takes to actually render. And that shit takes hours. So, I guess a clearer answer is editing audio doesn't really take that long. The video, if I want to make a video that's at least half decent, that always takes a really long time. And sometimes it could be fucking nightmare. But I do what I can.
Yeah, and I will also say Libra is way more efficient than I used to be when I was doing the audio editing, because audio editing sometimes would take me upwards of like 10 hours, which is not the time it should take, to be clear. I was being anal retentive and couldn't let things go. And at the end of the day, I'm very thankful that he stepped up to like kind of take over that stuff, because I was not a good I'm just too in the weeds sometimes, and I need to
when we have a studio and when this and if this podcast ever makes us enough money to actually make a living off of this, then yes, I can get off of these episodes and just start painstakingly doing a lot of really nice things as a full-time job. But this is first and foremost something that we want to do, and we just do the best we can. And this is why we always appreciate if people decide they'll chip in anything or share, or like Ember being on. That all contributes to this and makes this worth doing, and actually makes it a little easier in some ways when people help us. Guests coming on and talking to us helps us, and that way we don't have to pull our fucking hair out. So audio doesn't take too long for me, and video, it takes a really long time, some longer than others. If you want like a number between actually editing and rendering, it could take about like 10 plus hours. It's a lot.
Well, it all sounds really professional. Oh my god, sorry, the corgi just barked. But yeah, I was just saying,
That's
it sounds really professional. So, you're doing a good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. That makes my permanent cool toy grin that much wider, so I appreciate it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Ember. If folks are interested in finding you online, where can they find you?
I think for Affinity is Silverclaw1. I think Twitter and Blue Sky, it's Emberbat, I think, right? And I have a Patreon. I forget what it's called though.
I'm pretty sure.
Let me check. I don't remember. Oh, yeah, it's just Emberbat on Patreon also. So yeah, those are the
Good
main
bet.
places I use.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Nice. Well, definitely people should consider chipping in because you do amazing stuff. And yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to the future stuff that you're working on,
Oh,
and
thank you.
I'm sure it's going to be
Yeah, thank
awesome.
you for having
Absolutely.
me on.
Sure thing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was great. It was a pleasure to have you on, and I'm glad that we could
I know I'm
finally
very
persuade you
shy,
to
so
consider
yeah.
coming on. So
I'm
I very much
very
appreciate
brave
that.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
appreciate
I
that.
deserve a little treat after
Very,
this.
very brave. As
You'll
the
get your robes first. How about that? Yeah, your robes will come
yeah.
first.
Yes, robes
Yeah.
first, and you know. Oh man. Well, again, yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you everyone for listening this week. I hope that y'all enjoyed listening to our wonderful conversation, and that definitely didn't touch on any drama whatsoever. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful week. That you all keep an open mind and consider
Yeah.
wearing a tail in public, because I think that's a good thing to shill. And there you could that way you can keep an open mind.
How
And stay
else are you
happy.
supposed to do it? Don't.
Oh.
Later.
Bye for now.